On Christmas morning, my sister shut the door in my face as I stood there with presents for her kids. "You're not welcome, stay outside," she snapped while Mom chimed in. "Don't ruin the holiday." I didn't argue. I smiled, snapped a photo of the gifts, and walked back to my car. 10 minutes later, I removed my name from every bill, account, and service they depended on. By that evening, Mom sent a voice message she never meant me to hear. 43 minutes. That's how long the drive to Natalie's house stretched before me, ample time to meticulously rehearse the greetings, the playful banter, the warmth I'd pour into my voice for my niece and nephew. Madison, soon to be 10 in January, her spirit bright and inquiring. Tyler, just last week, had presented his latest gap-toothed grin, a tangible sign of growing up. Each present, lovingly chosen, meticulously wrapped, cheerful snowmen for Tyler, shimmering silver elegance for Madison. My Honda's back seat sagged under the weight of my carefully curated treasures, bags overflowing from Target, Barnes & Noble, even that quaint, overpriced toy boutique downtown that always seemed to coax more from my wallet than I intended. Outside, a delicate snowfall had begun at dawn, fragile flakes clinging momentarily to the windshield before my wipers whisked them away. The radio hummed with a jazzy rendition of Silver Bells, a melody that stirred memories of Dad's Sinatra records, Mom's fragrant cookie-baking marathons. Those cherished holidays, so deeply ingrained in our family's past, now felt like echoes from a different era. I guided my car into Natalie's driveway at precisely 9:30, tucking it in behind Keith's familiar truck. Their home stood picture-perfect, strung with crisp white lights along the roofline, a festive wreath adorning the front door. Through the living room window, I could glimpse the twinkling Christmas tree, its base already piled high with colorful gifts. A chill settled in my hands as I gathered the gift bags, balancing them precariously, making my way up the snow-dusted steps. My finger pressed the doorbell, its chime echoing within, followed by approaching footsteps. I anticipated Madison's eager face, or perhaps Tyler, or even Mom with her customary tight smile. Instead, Natalie's face appeared in the narrow crack of the door, her eyes cold. "What are you doing here?" Her voice, utterly devoid of surprise or warmth, struck me like a physical blow. My arm instinctively lifted the gift bag, a bewildered question forming on my lips. "Bringing presents for the kids. I texted you last week I'd be stopping by this morning. You need to leave." She didn't budge from the doorway, her hand gripping the frame, a stark barrier between us. "Natalie, it's Christmas. I drove almost an hour for this." The cold air seemed to magnify my disbelief. "You're not welcome here. Stay outside." Her words, sharp and clear, carried into the house. From somewhere within, I heard Keith's muffled query. "Who's at the door?" My stomach lurched, a sickening drop. "Can I at least give these to Madison and Tyler? I spent weeks finding." My plea hung in the frigid air, unfinished. "Don't ruin the holiday." Mom's voice, a familiar, cutting tone, drifted from the hallway behind Natalie. She appeared beside my sister, arms tightly crossed over her cardigan. "We're having a nice morning. Just go home." I stood frozen, bags heavy in my hands, gifts I'd poured thought and care into. I stared at my mother and sister, feeling as if I'd never seen them before. From the living room, Tyler's bright, innocent laugh carried, a poignant counterpoint to the bitter scene. Madison, I imagined, was likely engrossed in some newly opened toy. They had no idea I was standing merely 15 feet away, banished. Something cold and certain solidified in my chest. I gently set the heavy bags down on the porch, pulled out my phone, and snapped a photo of them, sitting stark against the fresh snow. The flash glinted off the elegant silver wrapping paper. "What are you doing?" Natalie's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something akin to fear in their depths. "Documenting," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my soul. I picked up the bags, turned on my heel, and walked back down the steps, my spine rigid, my head held high. The snow crunched loudly under my boots. "Drama queen," I heard Mom mutter, just before the door slammed shut, sealing me out. I loaded the gifts back into my car, started the engine, and sat for a long moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My phone was already in my hand. The first call went to Verizon. Hi. Yes, I need to remove 2 lines from my family plan. Natalie Crawford and Madison Crawford. Effective immediately. My voice, though I felt hollow, sounded remarkably steady. The customer service representative asked if I was sure, mentioning early termination fees. I confirmed. She processed the request while I opened my banking app. The shared Netflix account was next. Then Hulu. Then the Spotify family plan that included Mom, Natalie, and Keith. My fingers moved across the screen with a mechanical, precise rhythm, clicking through settings and confirmations. Mom's car insurance, which I'd placed under my policy 3 years ago to secure a better group rate through my company, was next. I called State Farm, leaving a detailed message requesting her removal, and followed up with their online form. The representative who called me back on the 26th asked if I understood she need to find her own coverage. I understood perfectly. Natalie's gym membership at Equinox, secured through my corporate discount, vanished with a few clicks in the portal. The yoga studio membership I'd gifted her last birthday? Gone. The Amazon Prime account they all use reverted to a single-user plan, under my name only. Keith's truck payment, a $400 obligation I'd quietly absorbed for 18 months after his business failed, a gesture of family helps family, was severed. I accessed the auto loan website, deleted my banking information, and called the loan company to ensure no future charges would process. The storage unit, where they kept their overflow furniture and seasonal decorations, rented under my name, received its 30-day notice. They had until late January to retrieve their belongings, or the facility, I confirmed, would auction them off according to Pennsylvania state law. My phone glowed 10:17 when I finally finished. The entire process, 47 minutes. I backed out of the driveway, heading home, past houses ablaze with inflatable Santas and light displays that likely cost more than my monthly electric bill. My apartment was utterly quiet when I returned. I'd moved into this suburban Philadelphia space 6 months ago, finally saving enough for a security deposit that didn't decimate my emergency fund. It was small, just 1 bedroom, but it was mine. No roommates, no manufactured drama, no family members who treated my success as their personal ATM. I made coffee and settled on the couch, staring at my phone. A part of me braced for calls, for angry texts demanding to know why their services weren't working. Yet the silence stretched, hour after hour. Around 4 in the afternoon, my phone buzzed. Mom's name appeared on the screen, but it was a voice note, not a text. I almost didn't listen. But something compelled me to press play. The audio was muffled at first, as if recorded by accident, the phone tucked away in a pocket or purse. Then, her voice emerged clear and sharp, talking to someone else. Told you she'd throw a tantrum. This is exactly why we didn't want her around the kids. She's been acting entitled ever since she got that promotion. Natalie's voice responded, slightly distant. The look on her face was priceless, like she expected us to roll out a red carpet. She thinks money makes her special. Mom again, her tone now laced with derision. Walking around like she's better than us because she has some fancy corporate job. Your father would be ashamed. My hand tightened around the phone, a white-knuckled grip. Dad had died 4 years ago from a heart attack. He'd never met the person I'd become professionally. Never saw me promoted to senior account manager or close the Patterson deal that earned me a $20,000 bonus. Natalie's laugh, brittle and dismissive, broke the silence. Keith said we should ask her for a loan to cover the new roof. Think she'd go for it? Don't be ridiculous. She'll cool off by New Year's and transfer us money like she always does. She can't help herself. It's guilt, I think, trying to make up for moving away and abandoning the family. The recording continued for another minute, discussing whether I'd send a check or do a direct transfer, speculating about how much they could reasonably ask for. Then it cut off abruptly. I sat there, in the quiet solitude of my apartment, until the light outside faded to a deep, bruised purple. The voice note replayed in my head, every word etched into my memory. Asterisk moving away and abandoning the family. She can't help herself. Asterisk my phone remained silent until 7:30. Then, the texts began. Natalie, my phone isn't working. Natalie, did you do something to my account? Asterisk Natalie, call me now. Mom. Asterisk Natalie says her phone is off. What's going on, Mom? This isn't funny. Fix whatever you did. Asterisk I uncorked a bottle of wine and let the messages pile up, unanswered. By 8 o'clock, my phone was ringing incessantly. I silenced it, flipping it face down on the coffee table. The next morning, I woke to 37 missed calls and twice as many texts. Most were variations on the same theme: disbelief, anger, demands that I reverse what I'd done. Keith had apparently tried to pay for groceries with a card linked to my Amazon account and been declined. Mom discovered her car insurance had been cancelled when she attempted to verify her coverage online. Around 10 that morning, I finally read through all the messages. Natalie's progression from confusion to fury was almost fascinating to observe. Her first text had been almost polite, assuming a technical glitch. By message 15, she was threatening to show up at my apartment and make me fix this mess. Mom's messages took a different approach, cycling between guilt trips about family loyalty and thinly veiled insults about my character. What struck me most was that neither of them asked why. There was no curiosity about what might have prompted such a drastic response. They'd slammed a door in my face, told me I wasn't welcome, accused me of ruining their holiday by simply existing on their doorstep. Yet, somehow, in their minds I was the unreasonable one for having a reaction. I blocked their numbers and made breakfast: scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice, the kind of quiet, simple meal I'd learned to appreciate since living alone. By early afternoon, they'd started calling from other numbers. I recognized Aunt Lorraine's area code, then what must have been Keith's mother's phone. Each time, I let it go to voicemail. Each time the message was some version of, "Call your mother," or "Natalie needs to talk to you right away." The funny thing about setting boundaries is how quickly people escalate when their usual methods stop working. They'd spent years training me to respond immediately to their demands, to drop everything and solve whatever crisis they manufactured. My silence was clearly more disturbing to them than an argument would have been. I spent the afternoon organizing my apartment, a task I'd put off for weeks. The closet purged of clothes I hadn't worn in over a year. Kitchen cabinets reorganized. I found expired coupons from 2 years ago stuffed in a drawer alongside receipts for purchases I'd made for Natalie's household. A $60 blender she needed for some health kick that lasted 3 weeks. An $80 humidifier for Madison's room when she had a cold. The receipts went in the trash. I wasn't keeping score anymore because the game was over. That evening, I ordered Chinese food and watched a movie I'd been meaning to see for months. My phone continued buzzing with calls from unfamiliar numbers, but I turned off the vibration. The screen lit up silently while I ate my lo mein and tried to focus on the plot. My building's intercom buzzed around 9 o'clock that same evening. The doorman's voice came through, crackling with static. "Ms. Reeves, there's a Natalie Crawford here to see you. Should I send her up?" My chopsticks paused halfway to my mouth. "No, thank you, Robert. Please tell her I'm not available. She's quite insistent. Mississippi says it's an emergency. Everything's an emergency with her." I set down my food. "I'm not available tonight, or any other night until further notice. She's not on my approved visitor list." Robert's voice dropped lower, professional discretion kicking in. "Understood. I'll handle it." I heard muffled voices through the intercom before it went dead. A part of me wanted to look out the window, to see if Natalie was making a scene in the lobby. The larger part of me recognized that impulse as old programming, the reflex to manage her emotions and minimize her embarrassment. I stayed on my couch and pressed play on the movie. She called from the lobby phone. I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up with a text from Keith's number. Asterisk, "Can you please just talk to her? She's crying in the car." Asterisk, I typed back. "She knows where I work. She knows my address. She knows how to reach me. What she wants is for me to fold immediately, and restore everything I canceled. I'm not doing that tonight, tomorrow, or next week. When she's ready to have an actual conversation about what happened, she can email me. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response came. The week between Christmas and New Year's was typically slow at work, but I volunteered to cover the office in our center city location. My boss seemed grateful, mentioning something about young employees never wanting to work during the holidays anymore. I didn't tell her I was hiding. The office was safer than my apartment, where family members might ambush me in the parking lot or lobby. My desk became a sanctuary. I caught up on filing, reorganized my digital folders, and drafted proposals for Q1 that didn't need to be written until mid-January, anything to keep my mind occupied and my hands busy. Jessica found me there on December 28th, eating a sad desk salad and reviewing expense reports. She knocked on my cubicle wall, despite the space being open. "You're here late." "Just finishing up some paperwork." I didn't look up from my computer. She pulled up a chair anyway. "What's really going on? You've been here past 7 every night this week." "That's not like you." I considered deflecting, offering some excuse about year-end deadlines. Jessica had this way of seeing through corporate politeness straight to the truth. "Family stuff. It's easier to be here than home right now. The holidays will do that." She opened a bag of pretzels from her desk drawer and offered me some. My brother didn't speak to me for 6 months after I refused to loan him money for his 3rd failed startup. He came around eventually, but it was rough. What made him come around? I took a pretzel even though I wasn't hungry. He grew up. Jessica shrugged. Realized that being related doesn't mean having unlimited access to my bank account. Some people figure that out, others just find new people to use. We sat there in comfortable silence for a while. Jessica didn't push for details or offer unwanted advice. She just existed in the space with me, making it feel less lonely. When she finally left around 8, she squeezed my shoulder and mumbled for me to go home and get some sleep. I waited another hour before leaving, just to be safe. New Year's Eve arrived without fanfare. I'd been invited to Jessica's party, but the thought of making small talk and pretending to be festive felt exhausting. Instead, I bought a nice bottle of wine, made pasta from scratch, and watched the countdown on television from my couch. When the ball dropped, I thought about last year. I'd been at Natalie's house, watching Tyler try to stay awake until midnight, while Madison practiced her violin in the next room. Mom had made her famous cheesecake. Keith had told terrible dad jokes that made everyone groan. It had felt like family, messy and imperfect, but fundamentally solid. I hadn't known then that they were already planning their budget around my contributions for the coming year. That Mom was telling Natalie to ask me for help with the new roof, treating my money like a shared resource. That my presence was tolerated as long as I remained useful. The apartment felt quiet as the celebration ended and late-night programming took over. I washed my wine glass and thought about the year ahead. Freedom was supposed to feel liberating, but mostly it felt heavy with the weight of relationships that couldn't survive honesty. January brought cold that settled deep into your bones, the kind of Pennsylvania winter that made you question why anyone chose to live this far north. I bundled up for the commute to work, grateful for heated seats and the blast of warm air from the vents. The first Monday back after the holidays, I found an envelope on my desk. My name was written across the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a card with a generic, impersonal winter scene. The message read, "Families go through rough patches. The kids miss you. Please reconsider. Keith." I appreciated that he'd at least acknowledged there was something to reconsider, unlike Natalie's demands that I simply restore everything and pretend Christmas morning hadn't happened. But Keith's apology didn't erase Natalie's behavior or Mom's complicity. He was asking me to be the bigger person, to absorb their cruelty and move forward without requiring them to change. The card went in my desk drawer, next to the receipts I'd already thrown away. Maybe someday I'd want to remember this period of my life. More likely, I'd purge the drawer during spring cleaning and wonder why I'd kept any of it. Work provided structure. I closed a major account in mid-January, bringing in enough revenue to make my boss hint about another promotion. The commission check was substantial, enough to cover 3 months of rent with money left over for the vacation I'd been planning. I thought about how that money would have been absorbed by family needs in the past: Natalie's car breaking down, Mom needing dental work, Keith's truck requiring new tires. My success would have been measured by how quickly I could solve their problems, rather than what I'd accomplished professionally. The commission cleared on a Friday. I celebrated by booking a trip to Portland, Oregon, for February, a place none of my family had connections to, where I could walk around without worrying about running into cousins or family friends who'd want to know why I was avoiding everyone. By late January, the storage unit deadline had passed. Keith sent me a brief email confirming they'd moved everything out on the last possible day. Barely made it, he wrote. Asterisk had to rent a U-Haul and cram everything into our garage. Natalie's still furious about the cost, but at least we didn't lose anything. Asterisk I didn't respond to that message. The storage unit had been one more thing I provided without ever being asked if I wanted the responsibility. Its resolution felt like closing a door that should have been shut years ago. 3 days later, Mom showed up at my apartment. I saw her through the peephole, her finger poised to press the doorbell a second time. I didn't open the door. "I know you're in there." Her voice carried through the walls. "This is childish. We're a family." I turned up the volume on my television and waited. She rang the bell 4 more times before giving up. Work resumed after New Year's, which gave me something to focus on besides the ongoing family meltdown. My colleague Jessica asked if I'd had a good holiday. I told her it was quiet, uneventful. She seemed satisfied with that answer. The voice note haunted me during slow moments. I'd replay sections in my head, analyzing the tone, the casual cruelty of discussing me like I was a resource to be managed rather than a person. "Your father would be ashamed." That line cut deeper than the others. Dad had worked construction his entire adult life, coming home with sore muscles and concrete dust in his hair. He'd been proud when I graduated college, the first person in our family to earn a degree. He'd helped me move into my first apartment, carrying boxes up 3 flights of stairs despite Mom insisting he'd hurt his back. "You're going places, kid," he'd said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Don't let anyone make you feel bad about it." I wish he'd been more specific about who anyone might include. February brought Valentine's Day, another attempt at contact. This time, Natalie sent a letter to my office. The envelope had my name written in her looping handwriting, forwarded through the company mail system. Inside were 2 pages of single-spaced explanation. She was sorry about Christmas morning. Mom had been stressed about money. Keith's hours had been cut. The kids missed me. Could we please talk? The letter felt hollow. An apology built on the expectation of reconciliation without genuine change. It never mentioned the voice note. It never acknowledged the years of financial support I provided or the casual expectation that I'd continue indefinitely. It asked me to be the bigger person, to remember that family forgives. I filed it in my desk drawer and didn't respond. March came with warmer weather and news through extended family. Aunt Lorraine, Mom's sister, who had always maintained a neutral stance in family conflicts, called to ask if I knew Natalie was looking for a new apartment. Their landlord had increased the rent, and without my monthly contribution to their household budget, they couldn't afford to stay. "Your mother thinks you're being vindictive," Lorraine said carefully. "But I told her I wanted to hear your side before forming an opinion." I told her about Christmas morning. The door in my face, the dismissal, the gifts left on the porch. Then I sent her the voice note. Lorraine was quiet for a long time after listening. "I had no idea they'd been that dependent on you financially." They weren't dependent. I was enabling. The distinction felt important. They planned their life around my income without ever asking if I was willing to be part of that plan. "What do you want to happen now?" She asked it gently, without judgment. "I want them to figure out their own finances. I want to stop being treated like an obligation instead of a person." My throat felt tight. I want my father's memory to be something other than a weapon they used to manipulate me. Lorraine sighed. I'll talk to your mother, but you should know she's telling people you cut them off over a misunderstanding, that you're holding a grudge over nothing. Let her tell whatever story makes her feel better. I meant it. April arrived with cherry blossoms and a promotion. Senior Director of Account Management, with a salary that would have made my family's demands seem like pocket change. I celebrated with Jessica and a few other colleagues, drinking expensive cocktails at a rooftop bar and watching the sunset over the city. The promotion came with additional responsibilities and a team to manage. 3 direct reports who looked to me for guidance and mentorship. I found myself enjoying the leadership role more than I'd expected. Teaching someone else how to navigate difficult clients or structure a proposal gave me purpose beyond hitting quarterly targets. One of my new team members, a recent graduate named Ashley, reminded me of myself at 23. Eager, hardworking, perpetually worried she wasn't doing enough. During our first one-on-one meeting, she apologized 3 times for minor mistakes that barely registered as issues. You're doing fine, I told her, reviewing her client correspondence. Better than fine, actually. Your follow-through is excellent. I just don't want to let anyone down. She twisted her pen between her fingers. My family sacrificed a lot for me to go to college. I need to make it count. Something in her tone made me pause. That's a lot of pressure to carry. It's just how it is, she said matter-of-factly, like the weight was normal. They helped me, so now I help them. My mom hasn't worked since I was 12. My dad's hours got cut. That's what family does. I thought about that conversation for days afterward. The casual acceptance of obligation as love. The belief that financial support was the only currency that mattered in family relationships. Ashley was at the beginning of a path I'd already walked, and I couldn't tell her where it led without sounding bitter or damaged. Instead, I started modeling different behavior. When she mentioned her brother asking for money to cover rent, I asked questions instead of offering solutions. How does that impact your budget? Do you have emergency savings left? Gentle prompts that made her think critically about the pattern. She came to her own conclusions eventually. I think I need to say no this time. He's not trying very hard to find work, and I can't keep bailing him out every month. That takes courage, I said, meaning it. Did you ever have to do something like that? She looked at me with those earnest 23-year-old eyes. Set boundaries with family? Yes. I didn't elaborate. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but I don't regret it. The conversation shifted to work topics, but I felt like I'd planted a seed. Maybe Ashley would learn earlier than I did that protecting yourself isn't selfish. Maybe she'd avoid years of resentment building while she funded other people's choices. My phone stayed silent. No congratulations, no acknowledgement. I hadn't expected any. May brought warmer weather and an unexpected email from Keith. The subject line read, "No expectations, just information." Inside was a brief update about the kids. Madison had joined the debate team and was apparently destroying her competition with logical arguments. Tyler had discovered dinosaurs and wouldn't stop talking about the Cretaceous period. The email ended with, "I know you're not ready to reconnect. I'm not asking you to. Just thought you might want to know they're doing okay." It was the first communication from anyone in my family that didn't include demands or guilt trips. I read it 3 times, looking for hidden agendas or manipulation tactics. Finding none, I sent a short reply. "Thank you for letting me know." Keith wrote back within an hour. Natalie doesn't know I'm emailing you. She's still angry. Mom is mom, but I figured you deserved to hear about your niece and nephew without all the other baggage. I appreciate that. I typed. How are you holding up? Honestly, it's been rough. Money is tight. Natalie resents having to work full-time, but we're managing. I think this was necessary, even if she won't admit it yet. I stared at his response for a long time before replying. I never wanted to hurt the kids. That was never the goal. I know, and someday they'll be old enough to understand why you had to step back. Right now, they just know Morgan isn't around anymore, but that's on their mother, not you. Asterisk. The email exchange continued sporadically over the following weeks. Keith would send updates about school events or funny things Tyler said. I'd respond with questions or brief acknowledgments. We maintained careful boundaries, never discussing the larger family conflict or speculating about future reconciliation. Through these updates, I learned that Natalie had taken a job at an insurance company doing claims processing. Before Christmas, she'd been working part-time at a boutique, something that barely covered her personal expenses while I subsidized the household. She hated the full-time work, according to Keith, but the benefits were good and the pay was steady. Mom had moved in with them temporarily to save money on her rent, which was apparently creating new tensions in the household. Your mother and Natalie are too much alike, Keith wrote in early June. Asterisk. Neither one wants to admit they were wrong about how they treated you. So instead, they've built this narrative where you're the villain who abandoned the family over a minor disagreement. Asterisk. Is that what you think happened? A minor disagreement? I asked. Asterisk. Hell no. They slammed the door in your face on Christmas morning, and then talked about you like an ATM. That voice note Natalie sent was eye-opening. I just never realized how bad it was until everything fell apart. Asterisk. I saved his emails in a folder labeled Keith. Maybe having one family member who understood the reality was worth something. Or maybe I was just desperate for any connection to the people I'd once considered my immediate family. June also brought my trip to the coast, a long weekend in a rental house overlooking the ocean. I'd invited Jessica and 2 other friends from work. We spent 3 days eating seafood, playing board games, and watching sunsets that painted the sky in impossible colors. On the last night, we sat around a fire pit on the deck. Jessica was telling a story about her disastrous first apartment when she turned to me. You seem different lately. Lighter somehow. Lighter? I wasn't sure what she meant. Like you're not carrying something heavy anymore. She poked the fire with a stick. When I first met you 2 years ago, you always seemed stressed, always checking your phone, worried about something. Now you're just here. The observation caught me off guard. I hadn't realized how much of my mental energy had been consumed by managing family expectations. Even before Christmas morning, I'd been perpetually braced for the next crisis or request. The subconscious tension of waiting for someone to need something. I cut off my family, I said quietly. The words felt strange to speak aloud to friends. Or they cut me off. Depends on who's telling the story. Jessica didn't look surprised. I figured it was something like that. You want to talk about it? So I did. The whole story spilled out while the fire crackled and the ocean whispered against the shore below. Christmas morning, the voice note, the systematic dismantling of financial support. My friends listened without judgment, asking occasional questions, but mostly just witnessing. Do you think you'll ever reconcile? Someone asked when I finished. I don't know. It was the most honest answer I had. I think reconciliation would require them to acknowledge what actually happened, to take responsibility for how they treated me. I'm not sure they're capable of that. What would you need from them? Jessica's question was gentle but direct. If they showed up tomorrow wanting to fix things, what would it take? I thought about it while the fire died down to embers. A real apology. Not I'm sorry you're upset, but I'm sorry for what I did. Acknowledgement that they saw me as a resource rather than a person. Proof that they've made changes and aren't just coming back because they need money again. That's a high bar, Jessica observed. It should be. The alternative is going back to a relationship where I'm valued for what I provide instead of who I am. I pulled my jacket tighter against the ocean breeze. I'd rather be alone than return to that. The conversation drifted to other topics, but the confession had lifted something. I'd spoken the truth aloud to people who cared about me, and they hadn't told me I was being dramatic or vindictive. They just accepted that sometimes cutting off family is the healthiest choice you can make. Summer meant long days and weekend trips to the beach with friends I'd made outside the family circle. People who asked about my life without calculating how my success could benefit them. I learned to paddleboard and got a sunburn across my shoulders that peeled for a week. In August, Madison turned 11. I thought about her all day, wondering if she remembered the aunt who used to take her to the Children's Museum and buy her books about mythology. Tyler would be 7 by now, probably playing soccer or baseball, assuming his birthday had already passed. I'd never know. September brought cooler weather and an unexpected encounter. I was leaving the grocery store when I saw Keith loading bags into his truck. He spotted me at the same moment, his expression shifting through several emotions before settling on something like embarrassment. "Hey!" He closed the truck bed and walked over. "Been a while." 8 months. I held my ground, paper bags balanced against my hip. "Look, about Christmas." He rubbed the back of his neck. "That was messed up. I tried to tell Natalie she was being unreasonable, but your mom got in her head about it." "Why are you telling me this?" I genuinely wanted to know. "Because I'm tired of watching my wife stress about money while refusing to admit why we're in this situation." He looked exhausted. "She thought you'd always be there to catch us. She planned our budget around your help without considering what would happen if you stopped giving it. And now?" I shifted the bags to my other hip. "Now we're figuring it out. I got a second job doing night security. Natalie's working at a call center. The kids are in public school instead of that private academy your mom insisted on." He shrugged. "It's harder, but at least it's honest." I didn't know what to say to that. Keith had always been peripheral to the family drama. Married to my sister, but somehow separate from her worst impulses. "For what it's worth," he continued, "I listened to that voice note Natalie accidentally sent you. Made me realize how she really saw you." He glanced back at his truck. "I should go, but I wanted you to know that not everyone in the family thinks you're the villain here." He walked away before I could respond. I drove home with his words circling in my head, trying to decide if his apology changed anything. It didn't. I realized Keith's awareness of the problem didn't erase the years of being treated like a financial resource rather than a sister and daughter. October meant Halloween and memories of taking Madison trick-or-treating when she was Tyler's age. She dressed as a princess, her costume carefully selected from the clearance rack at Party City because Natalie said spending full price was wasteful. I bought her the crown she really wanted, the expensive one with fake gems that caught the light. I wondered if she still had it. November arrived with early snow and another letter, this time from Mom. The envelope was addressed in shaky handwriting, her cursive less steady than I remembered. Inside was a single page. Asterisk, I'm sorry for what I said on that recording. I was angry and said things I didn't mean. You're my daughter and I love you. Please come home for Thanksgiving. Asterisk, the letter felt hollow. An apology built on the expectation of reconciliation without genuine change. There was no acknowledgement of the years of taking my support for granted. No recognition of how Christmas morning had revealed their true feelings. Just a plea to return to the status quo where I bankrolled their lives and received criticism in exchange. I didn't respond. Thanksgiving came and went. I volunteered at a homeless shelter, serving turkey and mashed potatoes to people who thanked me like the meal was a gift rather than an obligation. It felt better than any family dinner I could remember. December meant Christmas was approaching again, 1 full year since the morning that changed everything. I bought presents for Jessica's kids and donated to the toy drive at work. My apartment had a small tree with white lights, simple and peaceful. On Christmas Eve, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Hello? It's Tyler." His voice was higher than I remembered. Still a little boy. "Grandma gave me her phone." My heart stopped. "Hey, buddy. How are you? I miss you." He said it simply, without drama. "Madison said you don't come around anymore because Mom was mean to you." I closed my eyes. "It's complicated. Grandma says you're punishing us, but Dad says you're just taking care of yourself." He paused. "I don't really understand. I just wish you could come to Christmas again. I wish things were different too." My voice cracked slightly. But sometimes grown-ups have disagreements that are hard to fix. Will you ever come back? He sounded so small. I don't know, Tyler. Maybe someday. I didn't want to lie to him. But even if I can't visit right now, I still think about you and your sister all the time. Okay. He accepted it with the resilience of childhood. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, buddy. The call ended. I sat on my couch for a long time, crying for the nephew I'd lost access to and the niece who probably thought I'd abandoned her. The collateral damage of protecting myself from people who'd proven they couldn't be trusted. But I didn't regret my choice. The alternative was returning to a dynamic where my worth was measured in dollars transferred and bills paid, where my presence at family gatherings was tolerated rather than welcomed, where my father's memory was weaponized to guilt me into compliance. January brought a new year and a fresh start. I signed up for pottery classes and joined a book club. My life expanded in directions that had nothing to do with obligation or family expectation. I made friends who knew me as Morgan, the woman who laughed too loud at jokes and always ordered dessert. Not Morgan, the sister who paid for everything. Not Morgan, the daughter who was supposed to sacrifice herself for family unity. The voice note still lived on my phone, tucked away in a folder I rarely opened. Sometimes I wondered if I should delete it. Remove the evidence of that casual cruelty. But it served as a reminder of why boundaries matter, why protecting yourself isn't selfish, even when people you love call it punishment. Spring arrived with rain and blooming flowers. I got a text from an unknown number that turned out to be Natalie messaging from a new phone. Can we talk? I stared at it for an hour before responding. About what? About fixing this? About being a family again, We can talk. I typed back. But fixing it means acknowledging what broke it. Are you ready for that conversation? The typing indicator appeared and disappeared 3 times before her response came through. I don't know. At least she was honest. Let me know when you figure it out, I replied. She didn't message again. Summer meant a year and a half had passed since Christmas morning. I built a life that didn't revolve around managing other people's crises or funding their lifestyle choices. The guilt still surfaced occasionally, usually late at night when I was tired and vulnerable to old patterns of thinking. But mostly I felt free. Free from the expectation that my success was communal property. Free from the resentment that built each time I transferred money to people who considered it their due. Free from the voice in my head that sounded like Mom telling me I was abandoning the family by choosing myself. Dad would understand, I decided. The man who'd carried boxes up 3 flights of stairs and told me to go places wouldn't want me stuck in a cycle of being used by people who were supposed to love me. I didn't know if Natalie would ever be ready for the conversation that might rebuild our relationship. I didn't know if Mom would ever apologize without expecting immediate forgiveness and restoration of my financial support. I didn't know if Madison and Tyler would grow up resenting me or eventually understand why I'd walked away. What I knew was this: the woman who'd driven to her sister's house on Christmas morning with bags full of gifts wouldn't have survived another year of that treatment. The door slammed in my face was the last permission I needed to stop setting myself on fire to keep other people warm. I still had the photo I'd taken on the porch that morning. Gifts wrapped in silver and snowman paper sitting in fresh snow while my family celebrated inside without me. It lived in my phone's album labeled Proof. A reminder that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you show you exactly who they are when you're no longer useful to them. And sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is believe them the first time and walk away.